right, everyone. Welcome to the STOA. We just had an awesome session at the STOA about 30 minutes ago. That ended 30 minutes ago on the practice of circling. And now we're having another session on the practice of family constellations. Before our guest today will be introduced, I will introduce my co-host for the day, my upcoming bromance partner, Ola Biao. Ola is this super cool philosopher from Denmark. He's been the STOA twice before, and he'll be coming to the STOA in a couple of weeks to host an actual session on family constellations. And what's so awesome about Ola is that he's not only a serious academic philosopher, he's into these cutting edge kind of intersubjective psychotherapeutic practices. And how the session came about, I myself engaged in family constellations pre-COVID a while ago, and Taylor, who was just doing the circling session, Andrew Taggart, Jordan Hall, they all mentioned this practice to me. I've been meaning to get some presence of family constellation on the stone for a while, and then Ola just recommended it to me, so I said, awesome, let's do it. So how today's going to work, I am going to tag in Ola in a moment, and then he's going to have introduce the guest and have a conversation for about 30 minutes. He'll take me back in, and we'll do Q&A for the remainder 30 minutes. So if you have any questions anytime, just start putting them in the chat. I'll call on you. You can unmute yourself, ask your question. If you don't want to be on YouTube, just indicate that and I'll read your question on your behalf. So that being said, I'll take you in, my friend.
Wow. So first, I'm really honored to be a STOA host. I think that's really something. And then I'm also really pleased to share this space with Bertold. So as we were preparing this session, Peter kind of asked me who would I like to talk to, have a conversation about family constellation. And I think I had to think about it for about 2 seconds. And then I thought of Bertold. And I don't really know Bertold. Like, we've had a short email conversation, but I don't know him. And yet at the same time, I feel like I know him. I feel like I know you. I'm sure I feel I know you better than you think you know me. But so, and the reason is that I came across his work. So Bertold, he's an author. He's written several books on family constellation. He also works in the field. He's doing family constellation in all kinds of ways for businesses, for families, and so forth. So, and I've been reading. I read some of your books, and when I was reading them, I got the set. First of, I'll give 3 reasons why I invited you. Or the first one was, as I was reading your books, I got the sense of someone who has knowledge, gained knowledge through personal experience that kind of comes through very immediately when I read your stuff. And then a second thing I think is interesting about you is that I have the sense that you're interested also in expanding this work of family constellation or systemic constellation also into other areas. So you've done some interesting things with businesses that I'm curious to hear about. So that's the second. And then the final one, maybe the most important one, is that as soon as I started reading your books, I was like, I like this guy. there's this yeah, I sense a sense of humor in your writings, and I've also looked on some of your videos, and I've done some of your online constellation thing, and I get the same vibe. Yeah, this is a great guy. So I'm really excited about this. So the way it's going to work, I'm going to ask some questions to Bertold, and then he's going to share his wisdom with all of us. And then, yeah, as Peter said, at some point, we're going to invite you into the conversation. So I don't, before I ask the first question, maybe I should ask you, is there something you want to add to this, Bertold? Is there something you would like us to know about you? I haven't said, you probably have all kinds of education and all. I haven't said anything about that. Or, yeah, is there something you would like to add? You need to unmute yourself. You need to, yeah, unmute. Take your.
So now you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
Okay, nothing special. I'm so happy about your introduction. This is so nice. Welcome. So it's enough, I think.
Okay.
I talk about the work. That is more important.
Yeah. So in a minute, some of you probably know what family constellation is. Some of you probably don't know it. So, and just in a moment, we're gonna get Bertold to explain to us what family constellation is. But before we do that, I'd like to start in a different place, because when we do a constellation, we start with an intention. That's very important. That's kind of what you need to work with. So the client needs to come with an intention. So I want to kind of see if I can get an intention out of you, Bertold. So I have this, there's a premise also hidden here or in this, but I have this sense that at the moment, this family constellation, this field is moving. It's kind of developing. That's kind of my sense. It's probably been moving all the time, right? But I think there's some, I kind of get that sense. So if I were to ask you like two questions, what would you like to happen with this field, this family constellations field? How would you like to see it develop in the future? And also, if this were to happen, the thing that you would like, how would the world sense this? How would the world feel, or what would happen to the world if this family constellation field was to develop in the way that you wanted to? It's a big question, I know, but you're a big man, so I know you can take it.
My God, it's such a complicated question. Basically, because I don't have any expectations in a way. I've worked since more than 25 years with Constellation, and I enjoy the work, and I see how many different people are doing it in many different ways. And I find that great. And I am old. I'm just withdrawing in a some way. So I'm happy with whatever is happening. I have no special visions or ideas. So I can say I wanted to bring it into the world. So I was in many countries. I was the last 15 years often in China. I wanted to plant some seeds there that constellation can blossom. And I see how it's starting slowly. And I'm happy when I look at that. And then there are many more different parts in the world about, I don't know much more about them.
Are you second generation? If like Bert Hellinger, the founder of family, would you say that you were kind of like second generation after him, or?
I could say a young one of the one of the first of the second generation.
Okay.
Because you could
Were you
say,
educated with Bert Hellinger?
what?
Are you educated with Bert Hellinger?
You?
Are you trained? Are you
He didn't train people, but I learned from him.
You learned from him?
Yeah, sure. So maybe I explain a little bit about the history. So
Yeah.
Bert Hellinger started in the 70s. He had been a priest, and then he left the Catholic Church or the priesthood, and he learned all kind of methods, psychoanalysis he did, and NLP, and many more things, also constellations with some Americans. And then he founded his own style, his own work, and he was quite famous just as a secret. Oh, this is an interesting guy. He was quite tough. So he started to develop constellations with a bunch of people. There were seminars with 30 people, and many came often. And I was not part of them. There was Gunther Weber, Jakob Schneider, some names of this generation. And then one of them, Gunther, wrote the first book about his work. And with this book, Love's Hidden Symmetry, there was an eruption in Germany. Suddenly everybody wanted to know him. And then there were seminars with 300, 400, 500 people.
And this is in the mid 90s, right?
What?
This is in the mid 90s, 94,
Yeah,
93.
I just came when he started to grow, and that was 1994.
Ah, okay.
Because I did the first seminar with him, there were 20 people or 30, and then I booked the second, and I thought, okay, and then there was 300.
Wow.
In the university in Munich, and there was a big audience, and he worked on stage with some people.
Wow.
And I myself organized him in Freiburg in 98, and there were 700 people. So we had a big seminar. And I was going 3-4 times a year to a seminar with him. And when he started to travel in the world, that started around 2000, then I went quite a few times with him. I was with him in Russia, I was in South America, I was in Spain, in Israel he was and worked there. So I saw him working everywhere and I learned from him.
I think we should start opening this this question of what is actually family constellation. There's something there's this the German philosopher Wittgenstein. So he says, he has this phrase, I love this phrase, and he says, es gibt allerdings Unaussprechliches. Dies zeigt sich, es ist das Mystische. And what that means in English is, there's something which you can't say in words, but it kind of gives itself, or it presents itself, and it is the mystical. And I kind of feel that there's something mystical about family constellation. There's something happening that we can't really explain. And I feel that, and it kind of makes it difficult to explain to others what it is, because if you haven't experienced it, it's kind of, you can't put it into it. So my question to you is, how do you explain to other people who haven't experienced it themselves? How do you explain what family constellation is?
I make it, when I start a seminar with people who don't know, I make it quite simple. I just say, if you want to do a constellation, you need an issue normally, and that is often with family constellation. It is a family issue. There are other topics, but here in family constellation, family issue. Let's say, and this is often couple issues, or much more often also with the parents and the grandparents and this family. So, and let's say,
example, could you give an example of this could be an issue?
Let's say I have problems with my father.
Just to take a random issue.
Well, women always come, I have problems with my mother. And men have problems with the mother too, and women have problems with the fathers too. So you can name whatever. So I have, let's say, make it simple. I say I have problems with my father. Then there are either now the facilitator asks the facts of the family history. That is possible. But often I don't do it anymore because I trust what I can see. So you say, I want to solve these problems or come more in peace with my father. Then I say, choose a representative for your father in the group and choose a representative for yourself. So the client always chooses a representative for himself too. Okay, and I say it doesn't matter whom you choose. The person does not to be similar to your father or to yourself. And you can even choose a woman for your father if there are not enough men. And then this is a group, and I look around and I say, okay, I invite you, my father, and you. And then I say, and now give them a place in the room without talking, without explaining anything. So you may take the hands and lead the father on a place, and he looks maybe outside to the windows. And then you take the son, the representative of you, and give him a place. Maybe he stands behind the father and looks in the back of the father. And then the client can sit down. And then this magic starts because we ask now the representatives how they feel. And this magic is that without any information, very often they feel something quite similar of this family which was set up. And if somebody hears that the first time, he is doubtful. Sure, how can that be? And I was doubtful too. But after so many years of doing it, I now trust that. So I trust what the representatives say that is fitting to this family of the client. So I ask how's the father, and he may say, I don't want to see anyone. I look just far away. And then I ask the son, how does he feel? He says, oh, I want to be close to my father. And then that is what Hellinger found many insights about dynamics in families. So method is one thing, and then there are these insights of Hellinger. One insight, what?
I was just going to ask, so if you were to explain to, how is this possible?
I say this, I have no explanation, it's a mystery. Because you see, people don't like mysteries. So when we started and Hellinger said in the 90s, this is a mystery, then after 5 years, the first man, Albrecht Marr, he said, there is a knowing field there. And then everybody was a little bit pleased. Oh, it's no more a mystery, it's a knowing field. And for me, it was just a new word for this mystery. Yeah. We look for words and for explanations, but for me, it remains a mystery. And I don't understand, but it works. So I can work just practically because it's functioning.
Have you ever tried? Have you ever? I also do it, and and every time it works, which it does every time. I'm still a little bit sort of astonished. Like sort of, it's a little mirror. Every constellation is a little miracle. But I also sometimes think, I wonder what happens if, like a little bit like if the Wi-Fi is not on, so you can't go on the internet, right? We've all had that experience. And it's a little bit the same with when you open a constellation. You kind of hope that the Wi-Fi is on. Have you ever experienced that you kind of open and then there's no signal or nothing happens? People just stand there and
It depends very much of my own energy, I have the impression. If I'm tense, the field or what it shows, it's also reduced. And I know I was once invited to do an organizational constellation. So you can also set up representatives in organizations and they feel what is going on in the different sections of the company. And because they paid a lot, I went with my wife there and they said, we have a seminar about conflict solving in a bank. And in the evening, the highlight is your constellation. Okay, so at 8, I came and there was really, it had been a tough day for the head and the bankers were standing there and they expected now something great from the constellation. And everybody was so tense. So I wanted to set up a constellation, but they made just a circle. So someone, the oldest, set them up and just it took some, and nothing was happening. And then I asked my wife, she's also quite experienced, just to go on the place of each person and to feel. And she went around and on 2 places, and one place she said, I think I will leave this company. And I
wow.
And on other place she said something about a conflict. But this was not much, and we couldn't work with that because there was not the atmosphere, there was not the energy to open up to yourself and to would wants to be seen. So that is. But this is only one example. Normally, people are ready.
It's also something I've been thinking about. There's a special challenge in working with, I think, organization and work context, because in family constellations, you normally, people come there sort of very voluntarily. Like it's a very, in that sense, their approach to it is very pure. They have an immediate problem. It's their own, and they bring it, and then you work with it. Whereas in organizations, it's a little bit more, maybe people are there because their boss told them to come, maybe all this kind of stuff. And another thing is also, if someone shows up to a family constellation, it's kind of all bets are off. It's like, then you can go all the way with, yeah, let's look at your father, let's look at your grandfather, whereas if you're in a work context, you want to kind of, or I'd like to hear your experiences or your take on this, that, I mean, you can't like just, here's the marketing department. Oh, Angela, yeah, let's look at your mother. I mean, you don't really do that in that setting. But what's your I'd like to hear your experience. And then I'm just gonna do something with the light. It's just 2 seconds. Okay. When you started talking about the father, the sun started shining on me.
Okay. Basically, I worked in companies. I was a management trainer with NLP. But when I came to family constellation, this topic of family was much more important for me than anything else, because of my personal connection with my family, or with my missing connection with my family. And therefore, now family is my main topic. And I see that everywhere with problems. So I can say, there comes somebody has a problem with his boss. I see family. And somebody has problems with his team. I see family. And with someone personally, you can work about that, but not in the context when the colleagues are there. So one way is that you explain that. So what you have to do when you work, you need to separate your family issues from your presence as a grown-up. And when you have, let's say you have problems with the authority, with your boss, and then the father comes in, then your issue is to separate your family issue from the work situation. And you can do that in a really subtle way also. I don't need to set up your family. Let's say you have the problems in a work context. What I could do is, we have the boss and we have you, and then I invite you, just see the boss, and now you turn and look into your back and look back to your past and imagine your father. And then you turn again and then see what is similar and what is different, and now separate the two images. So, and you can think, when I look to my father, I say, you are my father, here I am the child. And when I look to my boss, I say, you are the boss, and here I'm a grown-up like you. So as grown-ups, we are on the same level. And when I can separate that, then I can be more grown up with my boss. So just to get this insight that this is this confusion, that helps often.
Maybe you can say a little bit about the rules. So when we do a constellation, we're kind of looking for the dynamics of a particular system, like the family system. What's at play in this system? And when we do this, we kind of, in the back of our mind, we kind of have these rules or these principles that kind of play out in a system. Maybe you can say a little bit about that.
Yeah, there are some very important principles. And one is, everybody who is part of the system has the same right to belong to a system. That means you cannot be excluded, especially in the family. That was a big insight of Hellinger. If some member of the family is excluded, that means nobody wants to talk about the person. Maybe he did something wrong. in Germany, the Second World War and the crimes with the Jews, and nobody wants to talk about the murder in the family. And if he is excluded, he will be represented 1 or 2 generations later. That means that some member of the family behaves in a strange way, which is similar to that of this forefather or foremother. So sometimes in a family, a boy becomes criminal, nobody understands why. But when you look back in the family, you find someone who was excluded very often. So that is one thing, exclusion. And another reason why people are excluded is because of death. So if there is an early death, even if this person is remembered, often there's a kind of shock. And then this person will also be represented. So that means this early death in a family, a child dies with 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, or sibling, that has big consequences of this on the survival siblings. And it's always there, but Hellinger brought it really in the words that we can see it. And I find it when somebody comes with a story like that, a sibling died, I find this tendency towards death, this connection with a dead person. So these are rules in the family.
And then the second principle, or there's 3 principles, right?
I have, sometimes I have 4 just. So,
4?
let's say, yeah, 4. My memory becomes bad. So, but I remember the 4. So 1 is everybody has a place in the family.
Yeah.
1 place which is adequate. So that means a right place. In a family, that is, we have this following the clock, that there is a father standing, at the side is a mother, and then there comes the siblings, the first, the second, the third, the fourth. So this is an order, we call it, and if we can accept these places, this is really relaxing for everybody. And if somebody cannot accept a place, maybe let's say you are the 4th child and you want to stand at the 1st place, that means there is something in the family system which has to be explored more, that you can come in peace and really rest and find your place as the 4th child. So that everybody, also in companies, everybody has a right place. So this is one principle. Another principle which I find important is, as human beings, we have always the same level of size of, it's the same kind of respect to each other. I respect you, you respect me, we are both grown-ups. And there is, in family, it is different. We say parents are big and children are small. And I say it in question marks because it's not the normal thinking of big and small. That means whoever is big is giving just out of love, just out of overflow. And whoever is small is just receiving and feeling supported and held. And this is the ideal. And I don't know any family which is like this. Because we start in a normal family, often with just the contrary. The children feel big and the parents feel small. So, but this brings no relaxation and no peace. So what we learn in Constellation is, how can I become as a child small, and when I'm a parent, how can I find my natural love and my natural resources to be a caring father or caring mother for my child. And this is a way in a constellation we go. This is a goal in a constellation. And so, the last is, fourth is, everybody has to carry his own destiny, his own life, his own death. That means if I want to let's say in a couple, if the man wants to take the burden of the wife, or the wife wants to save the husband, this is not possible. You can support each other, this is sure, but you cannot take it away. And especially in family, little children want always to save the parents. They feel the suffering of the parents, and they feel see the unhappiness, and they feel, so with 3-4 years, they feel responsible and they want to take it away. So they want to save the parents. And this is not possible. So what you learn also in this constellation, that means I leave you your destiny, your fate, your suffering, your aloneness. I am only the child when I say that to my father or to my mother. This is the fourth principle.
Wow.
Yeah.
I have only heard 3, so now I got an extra principle. That's very nice. Yeah, thank you. So I think now is the time to open up the stoa. Isn't that what you say, Peter? And if I can, so I give you the, you can guide it, but I kind of would like to invite the first question to be from someone who has, for whom this is like the first encounter with family constellation. If we have any, if there's anyone here, I think that would be nice. If someone has, like, this is the first time I've ever heard anything about family constellation, please ask a question and basic, any, so if someone kind of feels called to do that,
AJ, yeah, do you want to go?
Yeah, I'm just sort of curious to find out what the repercussions are. Like I think I have a sense of the modality, but I'm wondering what stories you've heard about, like, what's the impact on this person's relationships going forward? Is this something that you would do beyond, like, I might do it and then have an impact on my family, but is this something that I might want to include my actual family in the process of? That's sort of 2 questions, I guess.
So what I think is the most important is the attitude. So when you go really into depth and you come more in peace with your father or with your mother, then your attitude is changing. And then when they are still alive and you meet them the next time, they will feel something, or you will feel differently towards them. And then also this contact will change, but not because you have new things to say. It's just because something deep inside of you has changed. So, and this is the basic thing. And how does something change in the attitudes? I could say a constellation, you sit as a client and then you see yourself and you see the father. And I work a lot with language. So, with a simple language. So I try to find the right sentences for the son and for the father. So they can be really sincere. Something what they never said can now be said. So it can be negative, it can be positive. Maybe the child will say, I can never forgive you that when I was small, you sent me outside and gave me to another family. Let's say something like that. And then I will give a sentence to the father, and he will look to the child and will say, I see you now and I'm sorry. And this is something which, if it's true for the representative, this is touching something in the father, but in the client. So, and when you see that, something can be released, which was you were carrying your whole life. Some hidden anger, some hidden frustration. So you express it, and then you can see something can heal. Or a father can say to you, I could give you only the love I received from my parents. Because that is a limit for parents. If they had a rich, loving family, they can give you a lot. If they had a poor and worried and in pain family, they didn't receive a lot. So And a good sentence is always then the father says, what I could give to you, I gave it to you.
Any follow-up, AJ?
I just wondered about that last part of my question. Would you ever do this process with the actual family members, or is it always more powerful to kind of have these stand-ins, these other people?
Rarely it's done with the whole family. Normally it's for one in the family who is doing it for himself. You could do that, but it's a little bit more complicated in a way.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Well, couples sometimes are coming together. That is also nice. And then they see each other, okay.
Awesome. Thanks, AJ. So start putting your questions in the chat. If you have a question, we're here for another 25 minutes. While they come, I'll ask a question. This is for both of you, really. So I did family constellations once in Toronto, and it was like 30 people in the room, and I was like the only guy. So I kept being called up for like, the father role or the brother role or whatever. So I had a lot of experience in that one session. And it was like this knowing field. This is what my question is going to be about. It's like something channeled through me, and I'm like, okay, my arms want to move now. Okay, I want to go here now. And it's kind of weird, at first, my first experience, okay, this is a little weird. And then after, but it did have some effect because people were crying at the set after their little set, and there's obviously some kind of catharsis that emerged. But after the session, I'm like, is this something I really want to fuck around with, this channeling thing? Because you hear things like people play Ouija boards and they channel dark energies and stuff like that. So is that kind of a consideration or a risk, like channeling something that might be like family trauma or whatever that just cannot be contained or might be risky to contain in the family constellations container?
So my way is of seeing family constellations the modern shamanic way also, because sometimes I get the feeling if it's going really deep, this is like a work which shamans do in a different way, because we are touching really deep in the family core. And if you are the facilitator, you are in a way the container. So if I try that I can contain whatever happens. And because I have now a lot of experience, I can contain a lot. If somebody is starting, he may say, this is too much also. When I did trainings and we did little practicing groups, I really taught the people to say, if something is too much, you do the best. What you do is say, this is too much. So, and then it's also fine for the client. So you do the best you can do in a way.
And I also have obviously you have a lot more experience than me, but I have this sense that the field, it's a knowing field. So the field also knows how much the facilitator can contain in a way. So it I kind of have that sense that it kind of brings up whatever can be contained in this space in a way. That's not to say that as a facilitator, you just sit back and don't take responsibility. Of course, you need to do that. But I think I do sense an element of that as well. It kind of knows what can be handled in this space is my...
I think, yeah, you are right. And I think when you come in and you are the facilitator, everybody feels your containment in a way. And everybody feels also your limits. And so if you bring something in, it's just in this connection, what is possible here and what is too much here. Because, in some groups, something is too much and you feel it or you know it, and then you can handle whatever is brought up in a group. And you learn to contain it. When I was starting in China in my first seminars, that was really amazing how many people were freaking out. So they were, and because what I did not know before is that in the last generation, children were still killed in poor families because they were hungry, and then they killed they killed babies. That was just in a way normal. And in the first constellation, that topic came up. And people were freaking out and running out and screaming. And I needed all my capacity to contain it. And after 3-4 seminars, this was different. So in a way, people were more relaxed. I was more relaxed, and we could handle these difficult topics in a different, adequate way. So we learn, the field is learning, the participant is learning. So we grow together in a way, you can say.
And so someone actually asked the follow-up question that I was going to do. So Lisa asks for me to read this on her behalf. How will this look online, as it's very physical when she did family constellation, and myself as well, because there's lots of moving around and physical movement. So maybe you can contrast that to how it's in person and how it's on something like Zoom.
Right. Can I take that one, Bertold?
Yeah.
Yes. So I've done it over the last year. I've done quite a few constellations online. And in the beginning, I was also like, because it's such a bodily experience, I was kind of thinking, this can't work online. And then I kind of did small exercises and I kind of sensed it, yeah, it does work. And then I've had the experience that it's same, but different. I think that's what the Thai people say. It's like, it's the same, but it's different. But it's the same mechanism. And then I also came to think, well, just doing it physically is weird enough in itself. Like, how can someone come in from the street and then connect to my father or my grandfather or something like that? That's weird. So adding just an extra layer of it being online is, it's just making it like a little bit, compared to how weird it is, it just makes it slightly more weird, but not really. So, and I like to think about this. I had this concept in my mind of the idea of the human internet. So what is actually happening? For me, family constellation, what we open there is the real internet. So this internet that we're using now is it's not a fake internet, but it's a superficial internet. Whereas the other one, where we can kind of connect, I could connect to Peter's grandfather or something like that. That's the real internet, right? So if we really get used to that, maybe we don't need emails anymore. We can just, send it through the real, that's my vision for the future. But I will say my experience is I've done a lot of these online, and it's, it has a different flavor, but the mechanisms are the same. And I've also experienced myself very powerful constellations online. So it works online.
Can I add something?
Yes, of course.
I just make it in the head. I don't use, when I have a Skype or Zoom session, I just do that in the head, in my head and in the head of the client. And I behave as if it would be a constellation, and I can use any method, any sentence I use in a constellation. And I see no big difference in a way, because it's for the personal understanding, for the personal growth in a way. And that you can do when you think about your family and somebody's guiding you the steps which are necessary.
Cool. And Ola's coming in again. If you just came in on May 2nd to do an actual family constellation session at the STOA on Zoom. So you can check that out. It's a patron-only event. And the STOA seems like it's about to get weird, fam. So buckle up for that. I'll tag in Lynn. Lynn, you had a question and perhaps a thought to share.
Hello, everyone. My apologies. I arrived late, so I didn't catch the beginning, but I did have a constellation session last June. And I did it remotely with a woman that I know in Australia. And apparently it's more popular elsewhere. I found it actually quite meaningful. It wasn't like there was a range of people. It was just her and myself. And she used little symbols and asked me to move the symbols around and who's pointing to whom and in my family. My family, largely, my parents and elder relatives have largely passed. But what I think the impact was, and there's two, it'll lead to a question. The impact on me was that I felt afterwards more supported by my ancestors. It was a feeling like they're behind me, right? Like I am the best expression or the expression of everything that they have given to me. And it was like, they have my back, right? And I never really felt that before. And so my question is, in our society especially, are we very atomized? And, we think that we are, our individual egos and so forth. And what this did was kind of like sync me up or lock me up with a sense of my lineage. And there was some channeling that went on for sure. And she had some insight, I think. But I'd be interested in your thoughts about whether or not, if this was more widespread a practice, would we be changed and enriched and have different solutions and approaches if this was scaled up? Thank you.
Thank you.
You want to go, Bertold? I think, yeah.
Yeah, just say it in one sentence. I did not get right now. You explained, and what is the question? Just say it one more time, please.
If the constellations method was used by more people and people were connected to their family constellation, and that became something that just is a background for everyone, would it change society, and would it change our world? Would it change our decision making? Would it change our relationships?
That we thought in the 90s when it was spreading so crazily in Germany, because that was the most famous method in around the year 2000. And then there was a peak, and then it was reduced. Then something was changing, new topics came up, and then family constellations were spreading through the world. But and they are still spreading. But I don't believe that this is a big wave which will change everything. I think it's for people who are doing it like you, like me, like somebody else. This is really healing. But I don't think that everybody has to do a family constellation and will do a family constellation. But maybe a general understanding is growing through this method, because it's spreading on different levels and people know more about it or feel more about it. So it has still an effect, but it's not that everybody will do a family constellation. I don't believe anymore in that.
I'm going to take a risk here. I'm going to disagree with someone who's elder. You want to be careful about that in systems, but I will, because I'm more, maybe also just because I'm younger and I'm starting up this. So I have more of this optimism. I don't necessarily think everyone is going to do a constellation, but I think that there is an opening up to this kind of thinking, and something that so the reason I came on the Stoa in the first place was because I had written this book about men, the meaning of being a man. And I think one of the reasons why there was this, it went up and then it went down in Germany, was exactly because it kind of collided with some of these prevalent or emerging ideas about gender and all that, because there's a collision between these two. So family constellation, this system of order, the fact that parents are bigger than the children, the fact that the man takes the first place and then the mother, and then all that is kind of, it just goes right against a lot of these ideologies. And I think that was some of what happened in Germany, and then it kind of went down. But I sense now that there's a different space for that. So I think so I think we're moving into a bright future. And I also, I'm also involved in the men's movement. And I see young men, they want this, and they can kind of feel, no, we need this connection to something bigger, something behind us. So they're looking for that. So I think there's something in the zeitgeist which is actually more receptive to family constellation and similar practices, because it's not like, I don't think, I think some of the things you can do in family constellation, I think you can also do it in other ways, fortunately. So, but I think I think there's something going on, something good. So I'm an optimist.
Do you both have a hard stop at the top of the hour? Or could we maybe go 10, 15 minutes after? Is that?
I'm fine. Yeah.
Bertold, are you good to go about 10 minutes after the top of the hour?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Because we got a bunch of good questions. I'd like to get to some of them. And this is a question that just came up from Lynn's question. This might be for you, Ola. We had Alexander Dugin actually at the STOA a while ago. He talks about the fourth political theory, and he grounds Dasein, Martin Heidegger's term Dasein, as like the political, like kind of axiomatic unit there. I don't really know what he means by that, but I know you're into Heidegger, and so you work with family constellation. Say that again.
I'm also into Dugin. I like
there you go. Yeah. So where's the connection between Dasein and this family constellation stuff from your view?
Well, I think there's a connection between Dugin and family constellation, but and with Heidegger there is a connection, but there's also a disconnect, and I touch upon that in my book, because if you take Dasein, first of all, Dasein is not a man or a woman; it's like something else, and it's also. So, and Heidegger also talks about how Dasein is thrown into the world. And that's kind of, but he doesn't talk about where he's thrown into. So I'm not sure Dasein has a mother and a father. I'm not sure. So, however, I think there are also a lot of things in Heidegger which kind of corresponds very nicely with family constellation. So, and then with regards to Dugin, his fourth political theory, there's something in family constellation, when you relate to your mother and your father and your ancestors, what you find often creates like complications. Is when you try and say, oh, I don't want this for my father. Oh, I don't want this for my mother. Oh, and then you use all your energy to kind of keep it at bay. So the solution is to open up and say, I take everything from you. And then the thing is, actually, the paradox is that once you do that, you can live your own life. You don't repeat their life. You can kind of live your own life. And I think in Dugin's fourth political theory, there's this idea that we should take what we can get. We should kind of take in the three ideologies of the 20th century. So we should take in, and this is a biggie. So we should kind of take in they are. So there's Nazism, there's socialism, and there's liberalism, basically. He doesn't call it Nazism, he calls it something else, but it's what he means. So we should kind of take those in. And it's a big, this Bertold, it's like, this is kind of the big challenge for Germany is how do we kind of take in our past and not spend all our time just, how do we take it into our heart so we don't have to repeat it? And that's kind of what Dugin wants us to do. He wants us to take in these three ideologies, so to speak, not to repeat them, but to create like the fourth move, the fourth thing. So there's something in that, where I kind of see a connection to Dugin. I forgot the answer. The question was that. Does that qualify as an answer to the question?
Yeah, that definitely helped. Bertold, any comment on that before I take in someone else?
No, I'm not so philosophical. I'm so practical.
Cool.
Just listen, and I'm just amazed.
So, Abigail, you had a really good question. If I can take you in.
Yeah, let me see if I can put it out sensical. So recently I read from Resmaa Menakem that we are influenced all the way back 12 generations. therefore trauma, let's say, that I guess happened in the 17th century is kind of living in us, in our spinal cords in a sophisticated way. So there's a part of me that gets really curious about the principles or the orders in family constellations, given what we're being presented with in current times now, which is the collective trauma that's emerging. And I wonder if family constellations can address some of the collective cultural traumas that are appearing, given that the principles and the orders, I feel, were pretty biased, or my feeling is biased by the times, patriarchal times. I know family constellations with Bert Hellinger. I'm probably, I don't know, third generation facilitator, fourth maybe. I don't know now, I've lost them. But it was all men at the beginning with particular orders. And I wonder, as times are changing and trauma is emerging, whether the principles can actually still address in this current time the issues that we're facing that aren't just as simple as biological men and women or mother and father of this generation, given that we're influenced from 12 generations.
Okay. Just very simple, I can say, when we go in a couple, in a relationship, and there's a fight, and we go really deep into the topics, then we find, I could say, behind every man, there's a long row of men, of the ancestor, father, grandfather, great-grandfather, and many, many more men. And behind the woman is a long row of women. And you can, when you come really to the depth, you can see women feel more often really today actually in relationship as a victim, and men are the perpetrators. And when you see that in a family constellation, you can see, oh, there is a long row of victims, these women who were victims of men. And an actual woman today is also loyal to this women in the back, and the man is loyal to the man in the back. So you can see there is this old fights and these old problems are still repeated in a way. And the solution in a way is that let's say I'm a man and I feel really as a perpetrator, I'm so angry, I'm so frustrated, and I look, and then my solution would be that I look back and I see the man, let's say 7 generations or 12 generations, and I can see in the eyes of the man the same frustration I have, the same anger, the same loneliness, and the same being mistreated by my mother, and all the things which I have with women, which all these men have. And I can see that in their eyes. And I can say, I am loyal to you. I belong to you. That would be the first step of connection. And the same is for the woman with the women. And the second step is then that this fourth principle, I leave you your destiny, your fate, your pain, your guilt also. And I bow before this man. I am only the child, I would say. And then when I turn to my woman, I can see her in a different way, because something of the shadow I carried with the man out of the loyalty disappeared. And the same with the woman. And she sees the man with a little bit different. And then they are more present in a way. And this is healing in a way, you can say. And I guess that you can use for Germans and Jews and black and whites. And this is just the same principle in a way, to see the long row and the long pain and suffering, and to honor it and to respect it. And then when you turn and be in the present, you are a little bit different. So that's my answer.
Wow. there's something in what you said, Abigail, about the relationship between the individual and the collective, and probably also between the personal and the political. And something I found, I've worked half my life in the university. I'm still at the university, so I'm an academic. And a lot of the work we do at the university in research is about coming up with like plans for other people. Like we play this game, which is like, oh, if I could design all of society, what would it have to look like? If I could design this company, if I could design this, if I could design that, what would it look like? And I played this game for many years, and it's a good game, and there's nothing wrong with that game. However, it's also a little bit a way of sort of distancing yourself from the issue, and also distancing yourself from taking responsibility. So what I find in family constellation is that you can actually, what you do in a family constellation can actually have sort of collective implications. But the key or the starting point is you. There has to be an individual who takes individual responsibility and say, I own this issue. I will do something about it. Like sort of, I have lived my whole life as a victim. Now I want to step into my power and do something about it. And then when that person does that individually and takes enough responsibility and does the movement, then then it will have ripple effects. It will have ripple effects out into her own or his own family system, but it can also have ripple effects out into other spaces. And it comes back a little bit to what was it Lynn? Lynn, yeah, kind of what Lynn said. So I think if enough, yeah, when we do this, it kind of has these ripple effects, which are very mysterious also. So so that's my take on that. There's something very interesting about. I've also seen political constellations. I saw one which was like, I wasn't quite convinced, because it was like this, oh yeah, let's play this game that we can change the whole world without no one really taking responsibility. It didn't sit well with me, I will say, or there was something about it that I didn't like. It needs to kind of come from someone who like takes responsibility. Is my yeah.
Awesome. Any follow-up, Abigail?
Yeah, I love what you just said there, Ola, yeah. It kind of reminds me, I think I've traveled the family constellation circuit for, I don't know, 15, maybe 20 years. And sometimes you see the same constellations repeating themselves with the same people. And I think maybe it's just because it meets them at the place where they can receive whatever they're capable of receiving at that time. Yeah. And when you see that happen over and over again, it makes you wonder, especially based on what I was interested in with the collective trauma, where's the accountability? Sometimes a facilitator can do an amazing constellation, looks great for everyone, and everyone has an aha, but the actual issue holder walks away feeling nothing. Yeah. So I think accountability and responsibility is crucial. So yeah, thanks for that.
Awesome. So we'll take in one more question, and I'll just preface this question that here at the STOA, we have a wisdom gym, and we're like introducing all these different kind of practices, psychotechnologies. And I find it's like not one practice is sort of the panacea. They need to be complemented by an ecology of practices. So with that preface, I'll take in Alex's question, because he's comparing family constellations with something else.
Thank you, Peter. And this is very exciting. And I understand we're at the top of the hour, so I'll be brief. My question has to do with internal family systems as developed by Richard Schwartz and how that compares to family constellations. I've been encouraged to do family constellations, but I've done a lot of internal family systems. And in this work, like Ola has said, I've taken responsibility. I've looked at ancestral traumas and patterns with my parents and grandparents, and I've taken responsibility. I've tried to break the chain of these patterns. And I've looked at my exiled inner child and the protective behaviors I've developed in my lifetime to deal with the crazy adults in my life. And so I'm wondering, what is the relationship between this inner family systems work and the more external family constellations type of work? And thank you so much for this session.
Basically, these are two different methods from the very beginning. So because this inner family system is ego states, you can say this is a branch of this big movement where you are a grown up and you look to your inner different parts. And in family constellation, there are some connections, but family constellation, we look more to the practical family members. So it's more in the outside world, and we don't look so much to our inner critic, to our inner child. But it can meet each other, but I see it, and it can be separated also. And I like both. I like this ego states world because there you are really a grown up. That means you take responsibility. While in family constellation, when you deal with your family of origin, the basic outcome is that you feel small and protected as a child. So you don't take any responsibility because the family and the parents are taking the responsibility. But when you turn as a child and you are a grown up, you are responsible for your life. And then the inner family system is really helpful for your responsibility.
Thank you.
Anything to add to that, Ola?
I don't know this other method. So the only thing I have to add is that I really love your background, Alex. You seem to be in a, a really, really, really nice place. So yeah, but I unfortunately I don't know that that method. So yeah, so yeah.
All right. So we'll close up here. I'll just tag in Bertold for any kind of closing thoughts that you might have for us, or anything you'd like to leave us at the STOA.
When you really want something closing, I invite everybody to close their eyes for a moment. And you just breathe. And you think what's coming up when you hear the word family. And whatever is coming up is fine. If it's sadness, anger, love. So, and you can say, I am part of my family. I belong to my family. I don't need to understand it, but I belong to you. And you feel it. And then slowly, slowly, you come back again. And I see all our parents standing in the back, feeling happy to see us, how we are connecting with the love in the family. Okay, that was it. Could not resist.
We should end every STOA session like that. I think that should be a mandatory thing. Bertold, thank you so much for coming to the STOA today. That was a lovely session.
Thank you for the invitation. Yeah.
Ola, I'll take you in. Perhaps any closing thoughts that you'd like to say, and maybe to set up the session we have on May 2nd.
Yeah, I think like what Bertold did is like the perfect ending. So I felt my feet, like right at the end, I felt my feet for the first time in since we started. And not that, yeah, anyway, so but just I had this sense of connection to my feet in the ground. That was really, really nice. And then yeah, on the 2nd, I believe it's on the 2nd of May, it's Sunday, I'm gonna facilitate a like a live constellation, And so, yeah, and you can join and see how it plays out. And also what we're going to do is we're going to use some of the participants here as representatives. So so there's also a chance for some of you to maybe be invited to do that. And as I said in the beginning, every constellation is, when the constellation ends, it's a miracle, but when it begins, it's an experiment. And I find that every time I do a new constellation, there's something different where I think maybe it doesn't work this time. And I have that sense with this one as well, because it's a little bit different. It's in the stoa, and so it's an experiment. Who knows if we don't know if the Wi-Fi is on. We'll see. But it could turn out to be a miracle. Yeah.
We love weird experiments here at the STOA. So thank you too for coming today, Ola for hosting session, Bertold for providing your wisdom with us. I put that chess session in the chat. It's at 12 p.m. Eastern time on May 2nd. It's a Patreon event. We have tons of other events at the STOA you can check out, and hope to see everyone back soon. Thank you.
Thank you.